In 1736, a young African boy arrived on a ship here at Sunderland Point near to Lancaster, at a time when the city was heavily involved in the international slave trade. He died shortly after and is buried here in a grave that has come to symbolise the deep injustice of a former age. We all agree that slavery is wrong, fundamentally unjust, but it still exists in modern, often hidden forms in many different parts of the world, showing us just how hard it can be to turn our ideas of what is just and what is fair into reality. I'm Gordon Walker, Professor of Geography at the Lancaster Environment Centre. All societies have to grapple with fundamental questions of justice and fairness. What rights should individuals have? How should they be treated by governments and businesses? And what levels of poverty and inequality should we tolerate in society? These are the type of questions that myself and colleagues deal with in our teaching and in our research on many different environmental, social, economic and developmental topics in different parts of the world.
I'm John Childs, and like everyone else on the planet, I'm a consumer. Yet most of us rarely think about the ways in which the things that we consume are actually produced. If we do, it becomes clear that justice is a key part of ensuring that workers are paid a fair price for their labour and that the environmental costs of production are taken into account. The fair trade movement is one way of highlighting this justice dimension in global consumption. I'm in Garstang, a small town just down the road from Lancaster University campus. It is the world's first fair trade town and a global centre for fair trade activism. I bring my students here to the Fig Tree Cafe, which houses a fair trade study centre. I get them to think about how products are made and the people who make them. Everyone's heard of fair trade coffee, but what about fair trade gold? I've spent several years examining how gold is produced on a small and artisanal scale and examined fair trade standards for gold in Africa. I look at fair prices, environmental sustainability and positive recognition of small-scale miners in developing countries.
In my own research, I write about the idea of environmental justice, which first came to prominence on the other side of the Atlantic in cities like New York. Here the arguments were about inequalities, about who got access to the good quality living environments, the green space, the clean air, the good quality housing, and who got access to the bad quality, the pollution, the risk, the waste, and the dereliction. We travel every year to New York with a group of third-year students. We learn about the history of immigration into the city, the waves of people that came to New York from Europe and other parts of the world, and the very unequal life chances they had when they came to settle in the city. We visit groups in Harlem and Brooklyn that are campaigning for environmental justice, trying to improve the living conditions of African American and Hispanic communities. We also get taken around the incredible community gardens on the Lower East Side, where local people have turned empty plots of land into spaces for growing their own food, composting waste and getting together socially. They've had to battle hard over the years to protect these green spaces from property developers, arguing that it would be unfair and unjust for them to now be given over to commercial profit making.
Here in Lancaster, local people are coming together to grow food too. I'm Becky Whittle and this is my allotment. My research interest and my passion lies in trying to ensure that everyone has access to fresh, healthy food in a way that's fairer for local communities, for food producers and for the environment. So one of the major justice issues in relation to food is access to land. Today it can be very expensive to buy good quality fresh produce from the supermarket, and for this reason lots of people are interested in growing their own. Many years ago this wouldn't have been a problem, as large areas of land were held in common for everybody to use. However, increasingly in the world today we're seeing a situation of private ownership where more and more land is concentrated in the hands of a very few wealthy landowners. My research and a new course I'm teaching look at schemes that give people access to land, such as community and guerrilla gardening, urban foraging, allotments and garden share schemes. And all these are designed to ensure that unused land that's in public or private ownership is available to everyone to grow fruit and veg on in a way that's fairer for all.
Well, this is our third gathering on the green. Really, it's just made up of individuals who live in towns and villages who heard that fracking was coming to their town and thought, you know what, it sounds a bit dodgy, I'll look into it. And that's all.
The politics of energy in the last few years in Britain has become particularly charged, not least with the rising fuel costs of families. I'm Alan Webster, I'm here in Lytham Green near Blackpool, meeting with groups who share a concern about our energy future, particularly with the possibility of hydraulic fracturing or fracking being used in the county.
Decisions about our health, about our environment, aren't being given to our communities. They're not being given to parents or grandparents or families. They're being made, and the only decisions are being based on profits.
The debate around fracking often centres on issues of safety or environmental damage, as well as climate change, cost and security. But one of the more pressing issues that some groups today have expressed is about the decision making. Who gets to decide where or if fracking takes place? Is it local politicians, is it communities, national politicians, experts or the market? We call these questions of participatory or procedural justice. These are the issues that my PhD is coming to grips with.
We can beat this in Lancashire, but only everybody gets on board and does everything we can. So please do what you can. Thank you.
Here at the Lancaster Maritime Museum, the history of Lancaster's shameful involvement in the slave trade and its eventual abolition is documented in some detail. Maybe there will always be winners and losers, people and places that do better than others, and patterns of exploitation that we find it very difficult to live with. Our research has an important role to play, therefore, in investigating patterns of inequality and injustice, and through that being able to ask really searching questions about what is right and what is wrong, and how we can make change for a better and more just future.